Right now on Law & Crime's Daily Debrief. The Me Too movement sends Harvey Weinstein to prison. His accusers parade to court together. Weinstein speaks. Is his apology enough?
I was assaulted. There's people that really, really deeply were damaged.
The defense promises an appeal.
There are murderers who will get out of court faster than Harvey Weinstein will.
Celebrity attorney Gloria Allred shows off the numbers.
They have faced their fears, and they have shown courage.
Team coverage of an extraordinary hearing is straight ahead on the Daily Debrief for Wednesday, March 11th. Good evening, everybody. Team coverage tonight of the Harvey Weinstein sentencing hearing. It's 20 years in a New York State prison for forcing oral sex upon Mimi Halle, plus 5 years of supervised release if Weinstein makes it out of prison. After that, it's a consecutive back-to-back 3-year sentence for the third-degree rape of Jessica Mann and 5 years of supervised release if Weinstein gets out of prison. It all adds up to a total of 23 years in prison for Harvey Weinstein. The Law & Crime Network had crews stationed around the courthouse as that sentence came down. Let's begin tonight with Law & Crime's Jesse Weber, who was inside the courtroom and was outside as accusers and Harvey Weinstein spoke.
What an incredible final day we had in the Harvey Weinstein trial. All 6 women that testified walked in and sat in the front row. Powerful moment. We then heard victim impact statements from Miriam Halle and Jessica Mann. Halle explained how her assault scarred her deeply, stripped her of her dignity, and diminished her competence. She stressed how Weinstein's convictions will keep women safer. Mann discussed the realities of being a rape victim, including the physical reactions. She emphasized how this is not an isolated event, but something that will affect her for the rest of her life. Mann took the opportunity to attack the defense by saying that they distorted the truth. She asked that Weinstein finally be held accountable for his actions. We heard from the man himself, Harvey Weinstein. Speaking in a low, gravelly voice, he expressed remorse for what he did, explained that he is working on becoming a better person, regretted not spending more time with his children, who he said mean everything to him, and that he is learning a lot. However, he also said that he was confused and thought he had legitimate relationships with these women. Weinstein warned about the lack of due process and warned that this situation is similar to the communist purge. Although explaining he would have done things differently, he seemed to justify his tough attitude at work. Finally, he spent a large portion of his statement focusing on his efforts to help people and his charitable contributions. After this, Judge Burke didn't waste any time and ultimately sentenced Weinstein to 23 years in prison and required him to register as a sex offender. District Attorney Vance had this to say after the sentence.
The judge sent a message today that this type of behavior is something that any potential offender is going to have to consider. The judge obviously took it seriously, which is exactly how we think he should have, and we're grateful.
From there, Weinstein was taken back into custody. So aside from the appeal, the question, of course, is when will he go to L.A. to face those additional charges? That becomes the question. This is Jesse Weber reporting for Law & Crime.
The accusers entered court together this morning to applause, as you've heard. Angelica Spanos continues our team coverage tonight with their words.
Over 100 women have accused Harvey Weinstein of sexual misconduct. 6 of those women were in this courthouse today, and these were the women that we heard testify during this trial. Annabella Score with her friend Rosie Perez supporting her arm in arm with them in court. Mimi Halle, Jessica Mann, Lauren Young, and Tarale Wulff. All these women here with their heads held high. It was emotional for them to testify, to relive moments they only wanted to forget, but they said this needed to be done to hold Weinstein accountable and to prevent future acts of assault. Tarale Wulff testified about Weinstein's behavior, how meetings were calculated, and accused him of sexual assault. She reacted to the sentencing today outside court.
It didn't occur to me for quite some time that I might actually start to heal from being sexually assaulted. My single intention was to help survivors hold Weinstein accountable for his disgusting crimes. As I began my quest to help others, I was introduced to several incredible people that made me realize that I am also worth standing up for. I hope that the sentence sends a clear message that times have changed and that more women need to speak out for themselves and that men and women need to speak out for each other. We need to show self-love and empathy to overcome centuries of illogical thinking that has normalized the sexual mistreatment of women.
Tarale says she finally, after a long time, feels a sense of happiness and joy with what Judge James Burke decided here today. But the conversation must continue. And going forward, many of these women are all now looking toward Los Angeles and the charges against Weinstein there. The details of that still to come. I'm Angelica Spanos in downtown Manhattan. Back over to you.
Weinstein accuser Ambra Gutierrez says New York authorities should apologize to her for failing to go after Weinstein when she came forward with a recording which she made as part of a sting operation. She also said the 23-year sentence was a shockingly relevant number for her, despite New York prosecutors not pressing forward with her own accusations.
I could say that I was 23 years old when he ruined my life, so I guess it's the number they deserve at the moment. I think he wasn't confused when he tried to take me into this hotel room 3 times. The confusion was probably a little, persistent, but maybe now he's not going to be confused anymore. Yeah, he's going to have time to clear his head. And of course, there is the LA case, so let's see what we can do. I was assaulted. There's people that really, really deeply were damaged. Hopefully this is a start and they can rebuild their life, because that's what everyone deserves. That's what I'm doing right now. I have to rebuild my life and trying to get back all these years I lost. But I know that it's not easy.
New York prosecutors dropped charges against Weinstein involving accuser Lucia Evans after a detective failed to disclose that a corroborating witness contradicted her account of what happened. An attorney for Evans took a shot at Weinstein's defense after reacting to the verdict and the burden.
It means a lot, but it's still pretty heartbreaking, as you can imagine, to have shouldered so much of this case for months at a time and to have spent dozens and dozens of hours being scrutinized by cops and the DAs and having to walk the crime scene, and then to just unceremoniously have the DA just decide that your case is dropped, probably to get the complications with Detective Guadio to go away. I think the defense was slippery and slimy. You expect defense attorneys to use whatever tools they have in their toolbox. There's so much victim blaming and calling out the victims as liars. It's sort of the quintessential thing that we as a society see people like blaming on victims. It's disgusting to see it actually in open court.
Attorney Gloria Allred brought an exhibit for the world to see and spoke for several Weinstein accusers.
This is what justice looks like. 20 plus 3 years. It was very emotional for my clients. Each and every one of my clients, Mimi, Lauren, Annabella, we're all crying. I'm very emotional because I'm feeling the emotions of my clients. I know what they've been through. I know what they've been through when they testified. I know how it has been for them behind the scenes. I know how hard it has been for them. But they have faced their fears, and they have shown courage. And as Susan B. Anthony has said, courage is the best protection a woman can have.
Allred also criticized the defense for claiming the trial was unfair and blasted Harvey Weinstein's own statement to the court.
His statement was rambling. He had a right to make it. He indicated some remorse, whether it was heartfelt, whether it was remorse for having been convicted, having been sentenced to prison, or expecting to be sentenced to prison, I don't know. But I'm really not concerned about Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein, I will see again, because I will see him again in Los Angeles. I do think it's, in my opinion, a fair and appropriate sentence. He was afforded due process. He had 5 defense attorneys sitting in court almost every day. Most defendants cannot afford even 1 private defense attorney. So he got all the due process that anyone could get and more, because his attorneys demanded it, and I believe that they got it.
And still ahead tonight, updates on the local trials we're following on the Law and Crime Network. And then we head back to the Harvey Weinstein courthouse for reaction from the defense, who called the case against Weinstein a lack of due process. The defense for real estate heir Robert Durst has promised that Durst will testify during his current California trial. Durst is accused of killing his friend Susan Berman in December 2000 because he feared she was going to run to police to disclose that Durst had killed his wife Kathy back in 1982. Kathy Durst is presumed dead, but her body has never been found. The defense brought in their own allegations against Durst dismemberment victim Morris Black. Those came into opening statements and caused this heated moment in the courtroom.
Now, it's not just us saying that Morris Black was an unpleasant guy. There's a bug shot taken of him when he was arrested.
Okay.
Coming in.
We need to go.
That's coming in.
Chambers, Your Honor.
It's going to be evidence in this case.
No, Your Honor.
Stay. There's evidence in Galveston, Your Honor.
We're not in Galveston.
Okay, please, Mr. Lewis.
No, we're not in Galveston. We're in Southern California, and it's very pleasant here.
A jury has gone home today without delivering a verdict in the case of an Iowa mother accused of strangling her 5-year-old daughter to death with a pair of pajamas. The victim of the alleged crime was Chloe Thomas. Prosecutors say defendant Kelsey Thomas confessed to the killing. The defense says the confession was coerced. And day 2 of testimony against a Michigan man accused of killing 3 people and shooting 2 others in a case that shocked the LGBTQ community. Alante Davis and Timothy Blanchard, both gay men, and Paris Cameron, a transgender woman, were killed in a home in the early morning hours of May 25, 2019. 2 others you just saw witnessed the attack. Police say this defendant, Devin Robinson, shot and killed the victims. The defense says there's trouble with the identification of the defendant himself. And now to more reaction to the 23-year sentence handed down against movie producer Harvey Weinstein. After court wrapped up this morning, defense attorney Donna Rotunno held off on the sentence and said Weinstein's trial was unfair.
That sentence that was just handed down by this court was obscene. That number was obnoxious. There are murderers who will get out of court faster than Harvey Weinstein will. That number spoke to the pressure of movements and the public. That number did not speak to evidence, nor did it speak to justice. I am overcome with anger at that number. I think that number is a cowardly number to give. I think the judge caved, just as I believe the jury caved, and I am not happy. Nothing we did or said today was going to make a difference. I think it shows exactly what has been shown from the beginning with Judge Burke. Judge Burke was already prepared to say and do exactly what he was going to say and do, no matter what we said today. I think it has shown a pattern in this case from the very beginning. Mr. Weinstein really never had a fair shake from day one, and I'm not here to say that he's a victim, and I'm not here to say poor Harvey. But what I am here to say is we were looking for fairness, and we didn't get it.
Defense attorney Donna Rotunno went on to explain the key issues she plans to attack on appeal.
We hope that this sentence will speak to the appellate court in a way that will show that this has been unfair from the very beginning. And here's just one more thing that we can add to the list from the ruling on the Malinaw witnesses. I think the way that the jury was selected, the fact that we asked to question people individually, discovery violations, Sandoval, juror number 11, extreme sentences, so we can go on and on. There was a Sandoval ruling in this case that the judge had made. It was closed to the public, and in that ruling, the judge was going to allow a lot of things in that didn't have anything to do with sexual assault, but just who Harvey is as a person. And we believe that those things would have been so detrimental that his testimony could have then been a problem. So we had to weigh that out. So as much as I think he would have loved to tell his story, in many ways he was barred from doing so by that ruling.
Rotunno went on to describe how Harvey Weinstein was reacting to the verdict and to the testimony, saying Weinstein is overall confused.
Harvey, I think, is very confused. I think he feels very sad. I think he believed he had relationships with women that were different than the way they are now characterizing them. And if you look at their conversations via email, it would be realistic to believe that. If you looked at the way Jessica spoke about him on recorded conversations with other people, it would be realistic to believe that. If you look at Jessica's testimony when she said, yes, I was manipulative of him. Yes, I made him think these things. How did he know? That's the question. So I think he sits there very confused. It's very easy to say all these horrible things about him. But I think if you look at the circumstances in real time and you say, wait a minute, what was really going on? It's easy to come in here now and make a show and come with your lawyers and run to Good Morning America. It's easy to do that. We don't know what happened in those rooms. But what we do know is all of the circumstances that surrounded it. And I will never be able to reconcile that all of those circumstances that surrounded it are what normal, regular rape victims do. No one was in those rooms at the time. And our job here, whether it's the jury, the judge, trier of fact, has to determine whether the accounts that people told are reasonable and beyond a reasonable doubt match the threshold. And I'm saying that we don't know what happened in those rooms, but we do know all of the other things that surrounded those circumstances. So that makes us question, at least me and many other people that I talk to, about the veracity of the statements they then made.
Defense attorney Arthur Aidala is local counsel here in New York on the Weinstein team. He said the sentence was out of line given other comparable New York sentences.
Our criminal justice system here in New York, one of the ways it's judged is how we treat people who are really reviled, who are people who are really not very popular, or maybe the most hated people in the world. Justice is supposed to be blind, and because today the New York City criminal justice system saw a sentence handed down that it is 3 times the mean of the state average. That includes people who are predicate felons, meaning they have multiple felony convictions, unlike Mr. Weinstein. Those people are getting 8 years, and Mr. Weinstein is possibly getting 23 years. That was not a part of the New York City criminal justice system that I was proud to show my colleagues from Chicago.
Weinstein will almost certainly be sent to New York State's downstate correctional facility in Fishkill, New York, which is where the state is processing all incoming inmates from the New York City area. That facility also has a hospital. Defense attorney Damon Cheronis discussed how Weinstein will fare in prison and why the defense raised Weinstein's charitable work at today's hearing.
When you look at somebody in Harvey's age and his health, I mean, you have to look at whether or not the judge is giving him a life sentence. Harvey's tougher than a lot of you may think. Harvey Weinstein has gone through 2.5 years of this media intensity, a jury trial. He's been very fine with us. I think he's going to handle it like anybody handles it who gets incarcerated. He's going to do the best he can. When somebody gets sentenced by a judge, the judge is supposed to take into consideration not just the crimes of conviction, but mitigating circumstances, things that people have done in the past that are laudable. So when a criminal defendant is sentenced, it's not just, well, what did Jessica Mann say? You also have to look at their past and other instances of charitable contributions and things like that. So it's completely appropriate for his lawyers to raise those issues at a sentencing hearing.
We have a number of guests with us tonight to discuss the Weinstein sentencing hearing. Let's begin with Dina Doll and David Ring out on the West Coast. David, of course, you represent one of Weinstein's accusers. Today, Gloria Allred said she predicted a speedy attempt to bring Weinstein to Los Angeles to face separate charges there. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Los Angeles is going to move quickly and extradite Harvey Weinstein to answer the charges here and try to get the trial going as quickly as they possibly can.
Okay, so what role do you plan to play once that happens?
Look, I'm retained by Jane Doe 1 in Los Angeles, and I guide her through the criminal process. It's called Marcy's Law. Every victim has the right to a private lawyer to guide them through the process, and that's all my job is.
Okay, so as far as tactically, then, is your client expected to testify there? And how might the Los Angeles trial be different from what we saw wrap up in New York today?
Oh, Jane Doe 1 absolutely is going to testify. He's criminally charged with raping her. I mean, he's going to go to prison for a long time for his crimes in Los Angeles. And so it will play out. And Jane Doe 2 is Lauren Young, who testified in New York. And so you're going to see some crossover witnesses. But ultimately, you're going to see a very, very powerful, compelling trial out here because you're not going to see any of the relationships, the emails, the asking for jobs in Hollywood. None of that exists in the Los Angeles case.
Okay, so David Ring with some strong predictions for the Los Angeles case. Dina Doll, this here in New York seemed to be a short-lived victory for many of the people we talked to. They're already looking out your direction on the West Coast. So are people forgetting that we just watched something monumental today with a 23-year sentence for Harvey Weinstein here on the East Coast?
Absolutely monumental. And you asked me yesterday on this show about how the prosecution was asking the judge to send a message. And I absolutely believe that the jury sent a message with his conviction that, crimes involving acquaintances or at the workplace are still crimes. And the judge amplified that message with a 23-year sentence.
David and Dina, appreciate your insights from the West Coast. Let's turn back in-house to New York. Bernarda Villalona and Terri Austin here. Bernarda, you practice law here in New York. Your reaction to this sentence?
Well, I was shocked. I was shocked that the number was so high. But the reality is that regardless of what Harvey Weinstein would have been sentenced to, you weren't going to make everyone happy. So someone's going to end up being mad regardless of the number that you would have given him.
Some of Weinstein's words to the court describing his trial like it's a communist purge. I mean, what was he thinking?
Well, that's the thing. He wasn't thinking, Aaron. That's exactly why he couldn't have testified in front of a jury, because we got those few minutes of what he said during his sentencing, and we're so disgusted. Feel like you have to take a shower after hearing what he said.
Wow, Terri Austin, you're agreeing here. I don't know how far you agree, though. Do we need to take a shower after listening to Harvey Weinstein, or is that just too harsh to think that way?
I am in adamant agreement. What surprised me is the fact that his attorneys did not review his statement before he made it. If they had done so, he would not have made the reference that he did to the Communist Party. And I think he would have been a little bit more remorseful, not on the crime itself, but on some of his actions.
You know how that can go, though. You can have a script. People can veer from the script. Harvey Weinstein's a movie man. He knows the way it is. Sometimes you have to edit in an ad-libbed line, and he took some liberties there. Harvey Weinstein reportedly on suicide watch at Rikers Island before he transfers over to state custody. Terry, is that a wise move?
I think it's a very wise move, and I think they should do it. We've seen in the past with Jeffrey Epstein that, suicides can happen, and, he's facing 23 years. That's a very long time. He's in poor health. I think a suicide watch makes complete sense.
And Bernarda, quickly, we're hearing also that Donna Rotunno, of course, speaking outside court, she's basically relitigating a lot of the case. I know that there's a look at the legal appeal, but her words were pretty harsh.
Well, she was obviously she was very upset about what happened. I think she was more in shock at the sentence. She would have never saw that 23 years would be the sentence that Harvey Weinstein got.
It was a tough one. Appreciate the insight here on The Debrief. We will be back live tomorrow at 5 o'clock here on the Law and Crime Network with our recap of the day in court. See you then.